The first thing adults teach children in Bellmoor is to come home before the streetlights turn on. Not before dark, before the lights. Because once the streetlights came on, everyone in town acted different. Even my parents. Especially my parents. Every evening at sunset, the emergency broadcasts would start playing through televisions, radios, and phones all over Bellmoor. You could hear them through apartment walls if your neighbors turned the volume up too loud. Most people did. I think hearing another human voice made people feel safer during the watching hour, even if it was just a recording. The broadcast lady always sounded calm. Too calm. Like she had repeated the same warning so many times that it stopped meaning anything to her. The watching hour will begin shortly. Please return indoors immediately. Lock all entry points before sunset. Do not respond to unfamiliar voices outside your residence. They said unfamiliar voices. But everybody in Bellmoor knew that wasn't the scary part. The scary part was when the voices sounded familiar. I was 9 years old when I realized adults were actually afraid of the watchers too. Before that, I thought all the rules were just adult stuff, like seatbelts or not talking to strangers. Things grown-ups made up because they worried too much. But then I started noticing the little things, like how my dad checked the locks every 15 minutes after sunset, or how my mom stopped opening the curtains at night entirely, or how my older sister Ava always looked out the apartment peephole before she walked into the hallway, even during the daytime. Nobody in Bellmoor acted normal after dark. Nobody. Not even children. Especially not children. My little sister Lily was only 5, but she already knew all the rules by heart. Don't look outside for too long after sunset. Don't answer knocking. Don't talk back to voices outside. And never ever open the door after dark. Even if someone sounded hurt. Even if someone sounded scared. Even if the voice outside sounded exactly like someone you loved. That last rule scared me the most. Mostly because nobody would explain it properly. Adults in Bellmoor explain things the way adults explain death to little kids. Carefully. Like if they said the wrong thing out loud, something bad would happen. Whenever I asked my parents questions about the watchers, they always answered around the real answer instead of actually answering it. Like one night during dinner, I asked my dad why the watchers clicked outside apartment windows. He froze for a second before pretending he didn't. Then he smiled too quickly and said it was probably animals outside. But everybody in Bellmoor knew what animals sounded like. And that clicking didn't sound like animals. It sounded human, almost, like fingernails tapping softly against glass. Or somebody quietly clicking their tongue in the dark while they thought nobody was listening. The clicking usually started right after sunset, sometimes far away, sometimes right outside our apartment building. And the weirdest part was that nobody ever acknowledged it directly. Adults would just get quieter when it started. Like pretending not to notice it somehow made it safer. Our apartment complex sat near the edge of Bellmoor beside an old grocery store that closed during the second year of the outbreak. Most of the windows in the building across from ours were empty now. People disappeared a lot in Bellmoor. Nobody ever used the word dead, just gone, missing, taken. Adults seemed terrified of saying more than that. But kids heard things anyway. Children always hear things adults think they're hiding. I heard my mom crying one night after she thought I was asleep. I heard my dad tell her, "We still don't know if they're alive when they take them." That sentence stayed in my head for weeks. Because my parents almost never admitted they didn't know something. But when it came to the Watchers, nobody really knew anything. Not the government, not the police, not teachers, nobody. They only knew the rules. And every year the rules changed a little more. That part scared adults the most. The Watchers were learning. That's what people whispered sometimes. Quietly. Like they were afraid the Watchers could hear conversations through walls. A few years earlier, people said Watchers only stood outside houses and watched through windows. Then they started knocking. Then they started speaking. Then they started using names. And now, sometimes they sounded exactly like real people. My dad hated when conversations drifted toward that part. He would immediately change the subject whenever Lily or I started asking questions. One time I asked him what happened if a Watcher got inside somebody's home. The apartment got so quiet afterward that I could hear the refrigerator humming from the kitchen. Then my mom knelt beside me and said, "That's why we keep the doors locked." That wasn't an answer. Bellmoor adults were good at doing that. The night everything changed started with rain. I remember that because rain made Bellmoor feel emptier than usual. Nobody walked outside after sunset anyway, but rain made the streets look completely abandoned, like the whole town had disappeared. Ava and I got home right before the streetlights turned on. The second we stepped into apartment 614, my dad locked the deadbolt behind us automatically. 3 locks, every night. Same order, front lock, chain lock, bottom deadbolt. Then he checked the hallway peephole before stepping away, like something could have followed us upstairs. Lily sat on the living room floor coloring, while the emergency broadcast played softly from the television. The apartment smelled like soup and laundry detergent. That's one of the weird things I remember most clearly now. How normal everything smelled before nighttime fully started. My mom kept glancing toward the kitchen window while she cooked dinner. Not staring, just checking. That's what adults in Bellmoor called it. Checking. Nobody admitted they were watching outside anymore, but everyone did it, especially after sunset. I remember asking Ava once if she actually believed the Watchers were real. She looked at me for a second too long before answering. Then she said, "You only ask that because you've never seen one up close." I didn't ask another question after that. During dinner, the lights flickered twice. Everybody stopped talking immediately, even Lily. The apartment got completely silent while we waited for the power to either come back or disappear completely. That happened a lot in Bellmoor after dark. The power grids were always unstable during the watching hour. Nobody knew why. The lights eventually steadied again, but my dad still got up and checked every lock in the apartment another time. I watched him do it from the kitchen table. The strange part wasn't that he looked scared. It was that he looked practiced, like fear had become routine. Outside, rainwater reflected the street lights below our apartment building in blurry yellow streaks. Everything looked cold, empty, still. Then I heard the clicking for the first time that night. Soft, distant, click, click, click. Lily immediately looked toward the window. My mom noticed too because she reached over and pulled the curtains tighter closed without saying anything. Nobody talked when the clicking started. The emergency broadcast lady continued speaking softly through the television. Residents are reminded to avoid responding to voices outside after sunset. Then Lily asked the question nobody liked hearing. What happens if somebody answers? My mom stopped moving in the kitchen. My dad stared down at his bowl. Ava looked away completely. And suddenly I realized something. Adults in Bellmoor weren't just afraid of the Watchers. They were afraid of talking about them too much. Like words themselves were dangerous. My dad finally answered quietly. People who follow the rules stay safe. Again, not really an answer. Just another wall built around the truth. The clicking outside moved closer. I could hear it somewhere near the parking lot below our apartment now. Slow, patient, not random. That was the worst part. It sounded intentional, like something making noise softly enough that you almost questioned whether you imagined it. Then suddenly, 3 knocks echoed through the apartment hallway outside. Not our door, another apartment. Everybody froze anyway. The hallway went silent for several seconds afterward. Then I heard muffled voices through the wall, too quiet to understand. Then a woman crying. Then silence again. Nobody at our dinner table moved. Nobody spoke. The only sounds in the apartment were rain, static from the television, and Lily breathing softly beside me. Then the apartment lights went out completely. Darkness swallowed everything instantly. Lily whimpered. My dad grabbed the flashlight beside the couch so fast it almost felt rehearsed. The beam lit the apartment in weak yellow light. Outside our windows, Bellmoor disappeared. No streetlights, no headlights, no buildings. Just darkness and rain. And then, click, right outside the apartment door, closer than before. My stomach tightened immediately. Click, click. Then 3 soft knocks hit apartment 614. Nobody breathed. A woman's voice whispered softly through the door. Sarah? My mom went pale instantly, because the voice outside sounded exactly like my grandmother. The problem was, my grandmother disappeared 8 months earlier. Lily whispered, Grandma? My mom grabbed her immediately. No. The voice outside laughed softly. Not evil, not loud, just wrong somehow. Like someone pretending to understand what laughing sounded like. Then it whispered again. It's cold out here. That sentence almost made my mom cry. Because my grandmother used to say that every winter. My dad stepped toward the door without realizing it. My mom grabbed his arm immediately. The apartment became completely silent again. Then the clicking outside started moving slowly down the hallway. Further away. Click, click, click. Until eventually we couldn't hear it anymore. Nobody slept much that night. And sometime around 2 in the morning, while the emergency broadcast crackled softly through the television static, I realized something adults in Bellmoor never wanted children to understand. The Watchers weren't trying to break into homes. They were trying to make people open the door themselves.